the Boston Celtics, who by all accounts are having an unbelievable year. They lost last night. They didn't have Al Horford. They didn't have Kristaps Porzingis out there. They're kind of just like coasting into the playoffs here a little bit, but they're still 14 games up on Milwaukee, which is outrageous in an 82 game season. That is so hard to do. They've got the best record, the best point differential, the best offense, the second best defense, the best 1-6. This team is outrageously good. And yet there are still some questions about this team because they haven't won it all since 2008. And you believe that they have to win it this season.
They have to come out of the East. Like if you come, yes, you have to win the East. If you come out of the East and you play,
is that enough?
I think it is for me. I think so. Okay, let me add to your list, and it's a great. I mean, this is on paper in the regular season, they're historically awesome. I mean, they're a juggernaut, and I'm sort of on this kick, and some of the league office guys have been pushing this, so there's where that comes from. But I think it's true. I think outside of maybe a couple teams, Boston being the main one, I just think the parity is astounding. And I think the lack of separation between, the 2 or 3 seed in either conference and the 9 or 10 seed in some cases is really thin. And we've talked about right before the Kings got injured, they were on pace to win a similar number of games, but be much lower in the Western Conference. I just think that this level of separation and domination you're talking about from Boston would be significant at any time. But in a year, and I think a beginning of an era where there's not going to be that level of separation, it's amazing. And it was not that long ago that Brad Stevens had to take Joe Mazzulla on like long walks on the beach, or what's the equivalent in Boston? Is it the Quay? What did they do there?
You can walk on the Charles.
Yeah, long walks on the beach of the Charles, I guess, whatever. If there's a beach there. And just remember they had to talk.
Kind of like a bank. I used to sit out there on there's like a grassy bank that you can sit on. There's like a little trail and stuff. Yeah.
So I picture them on the bank talking hoops, where Mazzulla obviously got them to a conference finals last year and obviously got to a game 7 against the Heat. But the context is underperforming and sort of playing lackadaisically throughout the course of the playoffs, which I think with the exclamation point was you get down 3-0 to Miami and the sky is falling. There was talk about firing him. There was talk about, can he do the job? There were clearly all of us should just say, I think those things rear themselves up again in that locker room and NBA media, and maybe in ways that are significant in positions of actual authority in Boston if they flame out in the playoffs. And I think, to your point, it's a fair question. Is not winning it all enough? If that's a question, then losing in the second round or losing in the conference finals again, I think it would have been dire regardless of what the roster looked like. Add Drew Holiday, perfect fit. Add Kristaps Porzingis, perfect fit. You and I, all of us, the voters don't vote for Executive of the Year. It's the one major NBA award that's decided by executives. Brad Stevens is going to be Executive of the Year, I think, through his peers. So it's not his fault. Yeah, if Boston doesn't make it out of the East, especially given the injuries and how I wouldn't point to a single team outside of Boston that I would feel really good about. A single team, I'm like, that's the team.
I almost always will take the field versus one team. In this instance, I'll take the Celtics versus the field because they've been that good. And the Eastern, but the reason why I asked about, is it enough if they just get out, is because, all right, like you've had a historic season. You've been the best team in the NBA, absent running into the Nuggets in a regular season game and not really playing that well against the Nuggets, but you've been the best team in the NBA all season long. And getting out of a bad Eastern Conference doesn't give me like a lot of, let's line up the duck boats for the parade, right? Like you gotta win it all. And if it's the Nuggets that you run into, you got to beat the Nuggets. Like you have home court advantage locked up throughout the playoffs. If the series goes deep and you get to the finals and there's a game 7, it's going to be in Boston. And we've seen them no-show in some game 7s previously. This has to be the year. They, as you said, they stacked the deck with Drew Holiday, who is a fantastic fit for them, and Kristaps Porzingis, who, at previous stops, my mileage varied a little bit on Kristaps. He's been awesome for them when available. And to have the luxury of Drew Holiday on most nights, Drew Holiday is your 5th or 6th offensive option. That's outrageous. So this is the year. You have to do it if you're the Celtics. It has to be this year.
You know what? Yeah, you're winning me over to this argument. By the way, Drew Holiday, when he won an NBA championship in Milwaukee, was often the second most important player, including offensively on that team. You can make the Middleton argument, but it was dependent on the night. And
he had an outrageous playoffs. He was so good.
He's a stone cold winner, right? And the guy obviously plays on both sides of the ball And you're right. He's their fourth or fifth guy. I love the Nuggets, but to your point about the field, it's the field in the West. Denver's not going to make an NBA Finals if they make it losing 1 or 2 games like the Warriors used to. Boston can and should. So whoever they see in the finals is going to have gone through, I think, a totally different war to get there, a different level of wear and tear. Let me ask you this counter question. So let's say that the Celtics completely flame out. They don't even make the finals.
Love
they
this.
lose badly in the conference.
This is a great scenario.
All right. And I know you love it. And
Yeah.
Jayson Tatum again, because there's now data and Tom Haberstroh did a deep dive on this. I think he's great. It's not me just saying, oh, he's not good late. He is historically.
He isn't. I'm glad you brought this up.
For over a 3-year timeline, and this year's timeline is significant too, right? The data is, there are times where like guys will be bad in crunch time over a 3-year timeline or a 4-year, but not really over the last 18 months. But right, if you sort of lies statistics, this thing, not in this case. If Tatum is bad in key moments and Boston loses, it's not like you're going to get rid of Tatum. But what is the actual? It's easy to fire Mazzulla. What do you do if Tatum's the problem? Because I don't know the answer to that question.
Nothing. You're holding on. I mean, Tatum's going to get extended and get a max deal. And I mean, he's your guy. There's nothing you can do. He's one of the best players in the NBA. He's one of the best players in the NBA. And I would have him 5th on my MVP ballot if I had one. We still need to do yours. But I know that there's like a groundswell of support for Jalen Brunson to get into, the first team all NBA. I would have Jayson Tatum for me. But no, this is your guy. You're kind of stuck. But I'm glad you brought up the closing, because I think it's a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario, because late in games, you're right. Last time I checked, Jayson Tatum was among qualified players, had one of the worst clutch field goal shooting percentages in the NBA. But when you watch their offense, when like they haven't played a lot of games this season
this year,
where it's gotten tight. But when it happens, you notice the same thing. Their offense, which is the best offense in the NBA, stops operating. They have the other 4 guys, whoever's on the floor with him, go and stand in the corners, and it becomes Jayson Tatum iso ball. And I don't understand why they stop running the best offense in the NBA just to put it in his hands and let him do hero ball. Is it that Jayson Tatum has just decided to take this upon himself and everybody is like willing to acquiesce because, hey, whatever, we're going to beat everybody in the regular season anyway, so we might as well let him try this? Or is this like some sort of Joe Mazzulla by design? It boggles my mind every time it happens.
Now, look, you are right in what you're saying. It's totally true. And maybe to that degree, it's solvable. But there's also, not this year, but there are plenty of moments in that Warrior series where later, 2 years ago in the finals against the Warriors, that obviously the Celtics lost, where, remember this, Tatum said, oh, I was hurt, sort of in the offseason, like you were hurt. And last year, multiple times, including against the Heat, where this happened, but he had plenty of open looks that he also missed. I mean, I think it's both. The offense isn't run very efficiently in these situations, but he has had some. He's not been able to hit shots he should be hitting. And
I keep thinking about the Cleveland game that they lost. I guess it was like a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago, where they were falling apart in the 4th quarter, and they decided ISO. He took on Garland, and then Jared Allen helped on a step back, long 2-point buzzer beater that missed. And I'm like, what was that? That was incredibly bad offense. If you're Joe Mazzulla, you got to be like, whatever that was, put that back in your back pocket. And like, we're just going to run our offense because, oh, hey, this is kind of wild. Our offense is good when we just go with our offense.
Let me add this note too, because I'm not trying to be a Tatum hater. I think he's incredible. There was a legitimate conversation last year on Jokic and whether he's going to win a championship and then he won one, and the whole narrative shifted. This happens in this sport. Hell, this happened to LeBron. I covered that team. It happened to LeBron, right? LeBron's great, but he's never going to win a championship. And then LeBron won 4 and is the second best player of all time. So maybe they'll just roll and he'll be great and they'll run the offense and he'll hit some shots. But I do think there's a lot at stake and there's consequences to some degree. If you're right, I think you're right. If they don't win the whole thing.
Joker last year was incredibly dominant in the playoffs. Like, that run was an historic playoff run where he was like, oh, I haven't won a championship. Not only am I going to win a championship, but Joel Embiid won the MVP. No. You're going to watch me during this and go, man, we really screwed that up. I'm the MVP. I have a hard time believing that's going to be Jayson Tatum, but I don't think it needs to be. The Celtics are a better team than some of those are. Like, the Nuggets needed Joker to do all of that last year. 1 through 6, though, on paper, the Celtics are a better team.